With a yo-ho-ho, it's TaleOfTheToaster. Welcome to another tier list video on Inazuma 11. This time we're going to be doing the defensive moves. So we've obviously done characters in the past and now shooting moves. Defense is next. And as usual, there will be no Go Galaxy moves because I haven't Let's Played that game yet. And there's nothing from Ares and Orion. I don't know how to say that naturally, I'm sorry, but even though I have now watched those seasons, which wasn't the case with the previous two tier lists, there would just be too many moves and it'd be weird if Go Galaxy was the only one who missed out. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Killer Whale, and that's going to go just narrowly in C. It would get, well, of course the whale would be in the C, wouldn't it? But I'd want to put this higher, but it's very weird that it never got to be in the anime, because it's mainly associated with Hurley Kane, and he's a defender, so he needed to have a defensive move. But he was kind of the only person on the FFI team who never actually used a special move for defending, and he did have one. It's just a bit too weird for them to put it into reality in the show, I guess, but at least Hurley was the only defender not doing any defending moves, unlike, say, Orion, where it was everyone. I'm going to put Astarox nice and high up, actually, the defensive move of Asta and his team, just because I find it so strange that one of the strongest moves in the whole game is like, it's based on an asterisk. That little thing that you put at the end of a sentence where there's a tiny footnote. Oh, let's turn it into some rocks and then name the character after it, who's one of the main villains. Asta is his name. And it just started from something so simple and then became something so big. It would have been probably even higher if Asta was actually a defender and not a striker that happened to have the move. It's very difficult to rate Wall of Atlantis properly because the move looks good. It just comes at the end of a chapter that's probably one of my least favourites in the whole of Inazuma 11. I did not enjoy Wan Lee's arc, but the move itself is pretty good. Electric Impedance basically forced me to learn that impedance is actually a word. I certainly knew what impeding meant and to impede, but impedance was a new one. However, I'm actually not going to put it very high because it's a void type move, but it's electricity. Electricity moves have always fallen under the air element. I don't know why the Terracotta Army got special treatment. Mainly the first B tier move is actually going to be Body Shield from the Secret Service, just because any collab moves from that team are kind of indirectly linked to Acrobat Bomber, and it is just a move that the Secret Service could actually do in reality. Clone Block is decent. Card Splash. Whatever happened to the trading card moves? Why aren't there any in Inazuma 11 Go? I mean, I haven't even seen the move, to be fair with you, but I'll just put it in decent. Coil Turn is what it is. Respect to Jim for trying it against Aphrodite, even if it definitely didn't work. Defense Command 03 is Tesla Coil. It's, I quite like it because I've got it on mic, but I shouldn't allow that to put it any higher. Now, Solar Surprise, finally we're getting to bump out the upper end again. I'm very keen on that because I know that out of all the defensive moves in Inazuma 11 history, that's probably one of the ones that would affect me the worst if I was on a football pitch. I can't deal with bright light at all, and just really completes Soul Daystar's package. Very useful move. Now, a move like Cyclone wouldn't normally do very well, but I have to give it a slight boost on the fact that it is the first defensive move to be used in the entire Inazuma 11 anime. So that's something that Steve's got going for him. He's definitely the first person to make a defensive play, while Double Cyclone, I guess, is a natural advancement, but without that distinguishing factor. Runaway Train, I really like how it looks and sounds, but it really upsets me how weak it is. Like, this guy Rusty, he's worked his way up to be on the first team for Rhyme, and he's meant to be one of the best defenders in Tokyo. And his move, which looks really cool, is just the weakest in the game. It's a 20 TP type of thing, and if it was as powerful as it looked, I would gladly move it up, but on the fact that it's near completely useless, it irritates me enough to be in the E tier. Just spotted Pincer Pinch here. It is a move based on a crab. All water-based moves have always been air element in Inazuma 11 history, except for this one, which is a move based on a crab and it's fire element, and that I cannot forgive. Diabolical Cut is another fun example of how the dub tries to work around words like demon and hell and killer that the Japanese version likes to use a lot. We have the Gabby moves next, and I'm going to put Mystifying Mist in C tier and Mystic Mist in B tier. I especially love the way that Mystic Mist looks. It's so graceful, and it's, you know, they're worth having as separate moves. One is a mist that Gabby wades through, the other is a mist that Gabby creates and attacks with. I just wish that the names were a bit more different, because Mystifying Mist and Mystic Mist are separate moves. No, that's not going to cut it, dub team. I've put Super Sumo Stomp in the E tier because it's just a shame that Thor Stoutberg is an entire member of Inazuma National and his signature move is something that had existed long prior. Like, we were already well familiar with Super Sumo Stomp by the time Thor joined the team, and he didn't really gain much else after that apart from a passing Rolling Thunder Beast. Spatial Portal can go up to the B tier, I think. It's because it's a fun alternative to have on Xanax Mixie Max if you're not going all out offense with him. I like that Spatial Portal is his alternative, and it's a perfectly good idea. Looks good. Now this one's really hard to identify from the screenshot, but would you believe Desert Blast from Qatar is going into the A tier, kind of on the same reasons as Solar Surprise. You know, just like Bright Light would really affect you, and it can realistically happen in football. Yeah, you're not very likely to get sand kicked in your eyes in a real football match, but that is a technique that someone could feasibly do to defend in the right circumstances, and that's all there is to it. I just really like the Qatar team in general. I have to admit it. You know what? I miss Doppelganger. I forgot it even existed until I started doing this tier list. But actually, that was a move I was always quite welcoming to see in the games. Just to see another version of yourself or the opponent appear and connect the pass. So I'd like to see that come back someday. I've just put Dual Storm into the D tier, and I'm going to follow that up with Earthquake, just because it's one of many, many defensive moves that involve attacking the ground. Jumbo Sandwich is also one that's a little too weak, especially considering it has a high foul rate. I'm pretty cool with how it looks, but yeah, something that violent should at least be a bit stronger to use. Liar Shot needed to exist a long time ago. Like, a feint, I guess, is a basic tool in your move set if you don't use a special move, but it needed to exist as a hammed up special move, and I can't believe it took a Kappa to make that happen. Fake Bomber is just funny, especially in the games, but I can't believe it even made it to the anime. We clearly needed something like Kappa to make that acceptable, but oh, it's funny and it belongs here. Fractal Repeller is actually going to go all the way up to the A tier. I've criticised a lot of moves so far for being weaker than they look, and Fractal Repeller definitely falls into that category. But actually, I came to see it as... well, what happened is that I used it for the first time in Chrono Stone so early into the game that I forgot it ever existed. And then I convinced myself it was actually quite a powerful move that's hidden in the late game, having forgotten FaZe Duplies ever owned it for themselves in the first place. And it seemed like a perfect fit for Victor. How many times can I say perfect? But someone who clearly needs a low-cost defensive move to go alongside his shooting moves, and that's the one I always give him. It's great. Just popped Ice Block and its fire equivalent into the C tier, but we're also going back into the E tier. We've got two Thor moves back to back. From the picture, I thought it was Prima Donna, the ribbony dribbling move, but it's not. It's just Supreme Spin, a move where you spin. But on the topic of Prima Donna, we do have Sleeping Dust, and that's good enough for a C tier. It's one of those ideas that needed to happen and was done well. Now, a really interesting inclusion here is Bewildered, because if that's caught anyone off guard in saying that, yes, Bewildered is a dribbling move in the games, but in the anime it was actually used as a blocking move to kick up dust while the goal was removed in the back from Otaku. Does it really count as a blocking move? I'm not sure. I'd definitely call it a dribble out of the two, but it's on the tier list, so I'll put it in the C tier. Just a footnote on Pincer Pinch. Yes, it is called Big Scissors in Japanese, so the crab theme was a dub exclusive thing, but oh well, I need something in the F tier because neither of these moves will be going in it. First, we're going to put Heaven's Ascent into the B tier when it moves. That's called Heaven's Ascent in the dub, but it's obviously Go to Heaven in Japanese, which means that Go to Hell is its equivalent in Devil Army Z. Obviously, it's just called Hell's Descent in the dub, but even that is still more risque than they usually can get away with. It's one of the only moves with Hell in it. Go to Hell is just so funny to hear in the anime. Just all of these characters in a kid-friendly anime just suddenly telling each other, go to hell, and blasting them into the ground. It's funny as heck. I actually don't really like Particle Accelerator though. It's a very complicated move name for something that's just blowing the opponent up. Yeah, very good, Ragnar. You're so good at football because you can make things explode. Groundquake is going to be the second move in the F tier. That's because we've already had Mega Quake and Earthquake and all kinds of other Quake attacks up to this point. We certainly didn't ask for one in the final boss of the original trilogy, but that's what we got with Little Gigantes. And yeah, they kind of had a reason to rip off existing moves in the sense that this was done by the fake Jack. So he could have ripped off the wall, but he didn't. He kind of ripped off the Zeus and Genesis and Thor Stoutberg stuff. So it was the wrong thing to rip off, and as a result it just feels dreadfully boring. There's something weirdly feel-good about Harvest, just putting a normal farming technique to use to form a simple double sliding tackle. It's not a clever idea, but just a nice little word attribution makes it feel good. Horn Train is Runaway Train, but with less of a train aesthetic. It's okay. Hunter's Net from Aitor I'm going to put in the C tier. I know plenty of people would have that higher, but after so much Aitor across his 2 seasons, he probably deserved a new blocking move somewhere in Chrono Stones, I would have said. It's a nice little idea and works marvellously as a shot block. Less believable as a normal blocking move, but it's mainly there for shot blocking purposes, and as a result you see it quite a lot, but it's pretty good. Better than Hurricane Arrows anyway. Now finally we have something to put in the S tier. I can't imagine there being many of these at all. I'm struggling to fill up the A tier as is, and it's struggling to join it. There we go. But Land of Ice is a move that I have to have on someone in every Inazuma 11 game, and it's usually never Sean. Well, Sean has it, but then someone else will have it as well, because I love having it on someone different every time and watch them flagrantly ballet around the ice field and then just slowly turn their head towards the screen from behind. And when you've got it on someone unfitting like Jude or Axel, it remains funny for quite a long time as they slowly turn to face you and just show that, oh, this isn't Sean, this is someone else. And it's one of the few moves in Chrono Stones that they actually brought back from old games but didn't make it stupidly weak. Land of Ice is actually still really good, and even in Orion it's still powerful. Just Land of Ice never lost its ability. But Snow Angel actually has the means to join it. I think it's below Land of Ice, but Snow Angel, I appreciate that it's already taken one of my favourite defensive moves and making it better, But I also really appreciate that it got its own cutscene in the third game, and it just gave us a chance to hear Sean's wonderful northern accent after he hadn't said that much in the game. And he just comes along and says, "We're taking on the world, and now it's gonna stop us, Snow Angel." And I've watched that cutscene enough times to quote it off by heart, so clearly it is going in the S tier, isn't it? Now we're really on a roll because we've also got another A tier, that being Overnight Fortress. Now it's not terribly original at first glance. It's another one of those raise up a big statue or building or something to block the shot. It's one of many in that regard, but it is based on an actual bit of history from that time period in the Sengoku era, where an entire building had to be raised overnight, and that's exactly what the three lads did in Chrono's Zone under the command of Kinoshita, the person who would erect the overnight fortress in real history. So it's a very, very thought out origin, and I also appreciate that in the Chrono Stone's early arcs, where most characters were focusing on getting their Miximax or their fighting spirit, we were kind of past the point of just trying to develop a normal special move. So they found someone who wasn't on Ryman to have that arc instead, and they got complete randoms from Katsu's era to learn a move over the course of an episode, and that I really appreciate. Next to it is Iron Wall from Torres, the Argentinian defender. Again, for a reason that I've discussed in previous tier lists, but defender captains are way too uncommon in Inazuma 11. There just aren't enough of them, but Torres was the one who really stood out in that regard, and his move, Iron Wall, is just as imposing as you would want from an international level defender. Can't fault it. Now, Racing Flame gets to have a Go Galaxy image, but it is there in Inazuma 11-3 as well. In both cases, it is the... Oh, don't go there. It's the defensive move of South Korea, whose main theme is fire. It's not a really original theme, but the moves they had with it look good. Shadow Stitch is a better move for Jim to have than Coil Turn. Bamboo Pattern is weird. You'd think nothing of it in the game. It's just a 3-person jumping block. But then they tried to make it really creepy in the anime, calling it Kagome, Kagome, Kagome. And I preferred it not being as weird. The S tier gets representation from someone that's not Sean Frost because, that's not the right move at all. You're really weak and trigger loads of fouls, so About Face goes way down there. I am trying to give an S tier ranking to Ambush. One of the most hidden defensive moves in Inazuma 11 history, but rightfully so with a name like that. You hide in the bushes and then you emerge to steal the ball, but it's sold from the name alone. Am-Bush. That's all you need to know. I think they hit it on like the German team, was it? In Inazuma 11-3, it was only given to an FFI team that you don't actually face as part of the story. So you had to look, you really had to look properly to even find Ambush. But the Go Games gave it a second chance and they put it in Galaxy for everyone to use, and I can't wait to do that when I play Go Galaxy. Flapjack Defense, I don't really get the name, but it does make me want Flapjack, and I guess that's a good thing. It's probably my favourite JP move from Season 1. Now, hey man, I know that Hurricane Belter with his wheel guard stuff, that's not bad, like. It's pretty reet actually, but Anakibe over here with the killer wheel, very good. Belter, pet, reet. Goopy Gloopy Goo is gonna go in the B tier just for the fun of Goldie posing and having the goo mochi thing and the football land on her head, and boy, do you use that move a lot. I'm also going to be putting Ogliteration in the same tier. Now, although that's Goldie's move, I actually associate it more with the random recruit Prezari that I have on my Wildfire team, because as a mix and match move, it doesn't look the strongest. It just happens to contain the Queen of Dragon while some fireworks go off. There isn't a great deal to it, but it is an asset to me in level 99 competition routes. Obliteration on Prezari is one of the few moves that can actually stop a level 99 player without me having to mix him max or bring out a fighting spirit, so I'm very grateful for it. Meanwhile, it's very, very hard to rank Pterodactyl Swoop, the Mixie Max move of Soar, properly, because it looks good, it contains par, I like par, and I hear it's quite widely accessible in Go Galaxy, so you can give it to people and have it look cool, but this is Soar's Mixie Max move, and it never appears in the anime, and that's so strange. I don't know how you can kind of allow that to happen. The move has that purpose for a reason. It essentially meant that his Mixie Max was quite meaningless in the end, but we do know he's got the move and it looks good. Spiderweb is another one that I relied on a lot in the early games. I just used it so much that a fairly simple move like this became one that I was suddenly very attached to, even though with the way the graphics work, I could always see inside the character's model because his head was too far down before he raises it at the end, but little glitches like that help you remember stuff. La Flamme, though, that's a proper mix and match move. It's powerful. What does it have to do with Joan of Arc? Not a great deal, really, apart from it having a French name, but it's so reliable, so useful, and just looks cool. It's a welcome break from all the mist stuff as well. Mad Express is another one of those funny train moves, except this time it's actually powerful for once, so therefore I don't have to underrate it, and it goes into the C tier. Floral Fiesta, I personally associate with Joan of Arc a lot because it's in her moveset in the game, but it's mainly a move belonging to the Desperados, especially Flora, and it's so funny. You blow a kiss, a flower emerges beneath the opponent, everything looks like it's going to be lovely, but then it springs them into the air and the player explodes. It's just, you can't make this up. Floral Fiesta gets a good high ranking. Now, Great Wall of China, it may belong to Wan Li, who I don't really like, but at the end of the day, it's a really logical advancement on the wall. Turn it into the world's most famous wall and give it to someone who, you know, is supposed to be one of the best defenders in his region. Yeah, I admit, I do quite like the Great Wall. Magnetism also gets some bonus points for being a shoot command or a defense command, but it's one of the ones I've never actually gotten to use. It still looks good though. Generic Quake? Generic Quake. This one's called Mega Quake. Wow, it was used by Zeus. Acrobatics is going to the front of A tier. It was a candidate for S. I'm going to hold back just a little bit, but it reminds me of robotics, something that's one of my main hobbies. It reminds me of Acrobat Bomber, one of my favourite Inazuma 11 shots. It reminds me of acrobatics, one of my favourite Pokemon moves. It's just a bit of everything, and lovely bit of circus fun from my guy RX. No Escape is a really threatening move name for the team of Okinawa's Mary Times, but it looks good and I enjoy using it and playing against it. Okahazama Ravine is kind of based upon it, you could say. It's essentially the Chrono Stone's comeback for it, but I like the cheering that goes off in the background, but I think very few of us know what the Okahazama really is, and there's very few opportunities to get it or use it in the game. Stone Prison represents the English team in the FFI. How do I feel about prisons representing my country of England in Inazuma 11? It's fine, I guess. In Japanese, this move is known as Photon Flash because it hits you with the big bright light. For some reason, the dub changed it to Photon Crash, even though there's no physical contact involved. So on that, Solar Surprise gets to be a lot higher than the original blinding move. But we have another S tier edition. Planet Shield is so funny. I believe it's meant to be a Genesis move, but in the third game you can go into Alias HQ and get it from a move manual, and it is so extra that it's hilarious on anyone you gave it to. I gave it to a defender that I got from the Qatar team, but you could give it to absolutely anyone, and seeing them throw pretty much the entirety of Venus or Mars or whichever planet you'd want to think it is to just crush the opponent, it makes me giggle even now. Power Charge is keeping up the theme of Zeus's defensive moves not being very graceful and not being very interesting. Now, Perimeter Zone is a move that was in the anime, but the image here shows the game, and that's because there's a critical difference. In the anime, the Secret Service use it, and all they do is have these little swirls come up and blast the opponent away, like physically knock them away with the whatever that's supposed to be. Whereas in the game, it highlights an explosive file above somebody's head, and then they just slam the ground and blow the other person up. And some of these exaggerated moves, especially in the early games, have always made me laugh and still do. Perimeter Zone would probably be a candidate for S tier if not for its poorer anime adaptation. A quick draw, a very simple thing, but it's meant to be. It's one of the first Hisatsus to ever appear in Inazuma 11 from a defense standpoint, and it's nice that Max got to think he was all important by successfully blocking someone with it in the audition for the FFI team, but really he signed his death knell for it. He needed a better move than that. Now, Stonewall is a combination of not Caleb Stonewall, but in fact God Hand with Jax the Wall. It's a bit of a dodgy name. It's also got other fallings in that, despite this image looking like an anime screenshot, I think it was from like the intro opening song to Strikers or something like that. Yeah, it was never in the anime, and you'd really think a combo of the God Hand and the Wall would be. But it's not, it's a game exclusive, and you can only use it if you've got both Jack and Mark on the pitch, so too situational for me. Rolling Slide is also not really good enough for Brazil at that late stage in the season, but it's at least nice and humble for the really nice guy using it. Whirlpool is another good vibe of Adekebe. It's technically a two-person move, but you'd forget that very instantly. A Whirlpool move needed to exist since the first game. It's another sumo stomp move along with Thor's. This one is the one from before it. Flame Dance, surprisingly, is a defensive move given to Eric Eagle. I forget they ever gave him a defensive move, but they did, and it looks great. Well, it looks good. Killer Slide is a bit of a series staple in that people like Bobby, Caleb, and Royal Academy players have all had it since the very first game, and it's never gone away, but it's also pitifully weak for how often it sets off a foul, so we know it's one of the worst moves functionally. Now here is Vac Attack. If you're going to make a certain character only have one defensive move for an entire season despite them being a defender, it better be a good one. But oh, it is. It's wonderfully foreshadowed. I love the dub name. It's so much better than Hollow Demon, the translation of Shinkuma. I'm much happier with Vac Attack. That's funny, and from start to finish, it's just wonderful to look at. It's another one on the very, very outskirts of S tier. Now, my channel is a no-hate zone for Banyan. He's underrated, but his actual defensive move looks a lot better in the game than it does in the anime. Whirlwind Force is quite graceful in the game, but in the anime, it's just, it's so fast you can't even see what's happening. Shooting Star goes to the Dark Empress, so it's a little more evil than you'd want a move like this to be. You'd rather it be happy and smiley with the meme song Shooting Stars playing in the background, but what can you do? Right, so try and tell these apart. This is Defense Scan, used by Brainwashing. It's one of those ideas that you can always picture and needed to be a move. It didn't need to be a move twice, though. Thief's Eye is weaker and absolutely no different. It's another one of those moves that kind of made me worried when I started Go and realised that all of the early games I was seeing were quite unoriginal, like Sonic Shot from Dodge and the blatantly reimagined Defense Scan now being Thief's Eye. Obviously it got better, and then Chrono Stones in Galaxy had some fantastic moves, but man, those early stages of Go were quite worrisome with moves like that. Volcano Cut, a decent evolution of Spinning Cut, C tier. While Spinning Cut itself will go into the D tier. Slice and Dice I can't stand, it's just incredibly violent, another one of those Go 1 moves belonging to nasty teams, not a good start. Sideswipe, one of your very good Void type moves. I'm gonna go as high as the C tier. I don't have any personal attachment to it, but I know that it's a favourite of many others and it's at least middle of the road. Now annoyingly, I can't see where Whirly Whirly has gone for Orion. That would be a C or B tier. Hyperswiper is another one with a good name, but it's so beatable and kind of worse than Whirly Whirly that D tier is the kindest I can be to it. I like Argentina as a defense-based team, but mainly just for Iron Wall. Racing Flame and Hellfire, both just flaming moves that they didn't really need. Like, we had South Korea already and all of the previous fire teams. They could have had other themes for me. You would not be able to tell from this picture, but apparently this is Yo-Yo Ball, which is fine, I think. And now it's time for the big finish. Let's go for the tower first from Tori. That can be a B tier. The move doesn't make a huge amount of sense, but it doesn't need to. Is it fitting for Tori either? No, not really, apart from the feminine pose, which meant that only women could use this move until the Go games, where I was then able to give it to Bylong. But it's just such a staple and one that will be with you for the whole series that B tier is the least I could do. And something else that will be with you for the rest of the series is the wall. And that is so hard to rank because it's probably the most iconic defensive move. Like, it's the first one that springs to mind. Jack Wallside doing the wall. If you're going purely off like the original trilogy, then sure, aside from the fact it gets ripped off a bit as time goes on, then it deserves at least the upper half. It doesn't make sense for stopping people in their tracks, only for shot blocking, but it's so iconic that you have to forgive it. But whew, so many rip-offs later, and by the time of Inazuma 11 Aries, where someone else has got the wall and never gets another move after that, it's like, oh, right, I think I've had enough. But at least the same criticism doesn't go for the mountain, which when it moves will go directly above. It's nice that Jack levels his move up and this one doesn't get stolen by anyone, even if it seems to be broken just as easily. And so that's everything on the tier list from the first 5 games. There's probably stuff that got missed off, say I couldn't find Whirly Whirly for example, but also I always do one bonus shout for Go Galaxy. You know, we had a little Ozrock shouting the characters, we had Stargazer in the shooting moves, and the S tier edition from Go Galaxy for the defense tier list would be Einsatz. I never ever expected Ricardo to get a defensive move, but the position that he's forced into in the story of Go Galaxy, I can't go into too great detail because that will be my Let's Play, but you know, he was not a defender by choice, but he had to do it to pick up the slack, and I'm so glad that he actually got his own beautiful, unique defensive move to help him out with that. Just a shame it's actually really weak in the game, or so I hear. It's incredibly low cost and easily beaten, but I can't testify to that. So for now, Einsatz gets the S tier. So that is my defensive moves tier list. Only 5 in the S tier, but they're both very worthy. I would hope you agree. Road Roller I also underrated, so that's going up to B tier. That was in there before I even started commentating. But there we go, so that's it. As usual, the link will be in the description, and let me know in the comments what you think of the order. And if you make your own, send it to me on Twitter. You may even get a little retweet out of it. Toodle pip.